Hey, friends, you're listening to Crescendo, where the journey of self discovery meets the adventure of entrepreneurship for female founders, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. I'm your host, Rachel Lubchansky, an entrepreneur turned business mentor and strategist, guiding women to build businesses that align with who they are at their core, the positive change they want to see in the world, and the financial security they desire. I'm excited to introduce you today to my guest because she is an absolute powerhouse whose journey is sure to leave you inspired. Ruth Rubin is a high school dropout turned highly successful entrepreneur with a story that exemplifies resilience and vision. Ruth left school at just 15 years old, taking on cleaning and manual jobs. But by 26, she had founded her own staffing company in the UK. Over the next 17 years, she grew it into a large and successful business, eventually launching a global HR company that she successfully sold in 2021. Now, as an exited entrepreneur, Ruth wears many hats. She is a mother to four, an angel investor championing aspiring founders, a corporate consultant on people and culture, and a key player in building Israel's largest pre-seed accelerator. Ruth's unique talent lies in her ability to uncover hidden potential, helping her clients appraise their true value. She uses the superpower when coaching and mentoring her clients to create mini revolutions that enable them to truly and accurately value themselves based on objective assessment over mere positive thinking. With a master's in philosophy and a focus on business ethics, Ruth brings a thoughtful and impactful approach to every venture and mentorship. And without further ado, let's bring on Ruth Rubin. Welcome to the show. It's truly an honor and joy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Likewise. Thank you.
We have so much to talk about today. And I actually want to start by going back to your 15-year-old self, the teen who dropped out of school to work manual jobs. Tell us who she was and who did she think she could be and what were her goals at the time?
Okay. 15-year-old Ruth was very compliant and very quiet. I don't think I had back then dreams. Not very inspiring, I know. And the older Ruth today knows that 15-year-old Ruth was learning to be self-sufficient in all areas, whether that was financial. I needed to be self-sufficient financially, emotionally. So that was at play as well. And sorry, what else did you ask about my teenage self?
Yeah, I mean, I think you left school and you chose to go and do what you called manual jobs, cleaning and some other things. What
Yeah.
drew you to those jobs in particular?
I think honestly, that's all at that stage I was qualified to do. So it was whatever comes, a work ethic of maybe I was 16 and 17, just whatever I can contribute towards. I don't think anyone would have hired me back then as a consultant or any role with lots of responsibility, and rightly so. Not just age, maturity as well. Age is sometimes just a guide. So yeah, that's the answer really. That's all basically that's all I could get.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, my first job was scooping ice cream. I used to say I delivered joy in a cup. I worked at a place called Maggie Moo's in St. Louis, and I'm just thinking about the job that you went out to get. It seems more serious, like it really was to fulfill this goal of becoming financially independent, whereas I think my job was to build some sense of responsibility and dabble in the workforce as a teen living in a comfortable home. So what was the turning point then for you that motivated you to eventually go out and even think about starting your own business?
oh wow. I love that joy in a cup. It sounds like as well, Rachel, you were quite intentional. It sounds like you wanted to experience work. And if I look back at myself, I think it was a bit of a lack of choice with absolutely no regrets. I think the fact that I did those menial jobs, cleaning hotels and babysitting, and have served me really well. So from that to the point of starting my own business, I lived in Israel from age 15 to 22, and that's at the stage of dropping out of school. And then I moved back to the UK, to London with no qualifications, having been, as you said, a high school dropout, as I was back then. I tried a few temping roles. I don't know if your American audience have the same terminology, temping, we call
Yes.
it in the UK. Yeah, okay, in the temporary world. A bit office-based, a week here, a week there. And then the recruitment agency that was sending me to these office clerical roles, they kind of liked me because I was reliable. I would turn up. It was no concept of being late. You're just very grateful for the work, so you don't mess around with that. Plus, living in London, I was living in London at the time. It's very expensive. They offered me a role, came up starting as an admin person, sorting out CVs in the office. Also temporary, but it was ongoing. And that was the starting point, a bit of luck and a bit of timing of entering the world of recruitment. And this was the largest recruitment company in the world, and this was their flagship branch in the financial district of London with flagship contracts. So I worked my way up, not to a very senior role within the company, from admin person to receptionist to junior assistant to the recruiters. And I'll get to the turning point. And I think, I'm fairly sure I lasted in recruitment, because there's a lot of people who have worked in recruitment and doesn't always last. It's just a love of people, a love of humans. And I think I'm quite good with people, which comes from a place of caring and being fascinated by people and seeing the potential and various other attributes and skills I've got. And a turning point for me, so that could have stayed that way. I could have stayed in a recruitment business and done quite well and maybe made it to senior recruiter. I think one of the turning points was, it was such a large brand and a large flagship store. No one really did sales. In my generation, sales was this. And look, I'm doing the phone like this. The kids make me do that because the generation these days, they say that's how you hold a phone. But no, we held a phone like this.
That's so funny. I just want to explain to people who are listening to the podcast, when like your pinky is out and your thumb is up, like those old fashioned phones that have the top part of it and then the bottom, and it kind of wrapped around your chin. This is what Ruth is illustrating for us, as if we're playing charades.
Yeah, that's right. The branch manager asked who's up for doing some cold calling for some sales. No one wanted to do it. We had about 30 in the branch. Yeah, no one wanted to do that. I'll give it a go. I didn't know I could do sales at that point. It was just talking to people and they can say no. And I loved it. And I loved the buzz of the yeses. So that was the sales aspect of recruitment, which can be quite, quote unquote, salesy, bringing contracts in. And that, I think it's an aspect of entrepreneurialism. It's not necessarily critical, but it's quite important. It was quite important for me when I went out alone, when I later set up alone, to go and hustle, go and do some hustling and pick the phone up. And I back then I didn't understand, why is everyone not doing this? What are people afraid of? They'll just say, no, it's okay. And I was quite good at that. I know we don't do sales that way today, but it manifests in different ways of reaching out to someone and connecting with someone in a network. So that was until then untapped talent or skill that probably pushed me forward towards breaking out and setting up alone.
That's great. I love that you just brought that up, because I think so many people are scared of the no and they don't want to be rejected. And they take it to mean something about themselves, their qualifications, what they have to offer, whatever it is. And it really, just the thought that somebody could say no to them just completely keeps them from offering and showing up to begin with. So you took this as an opportunity that nobody else in the firm wanted and ended up really proving yourself there. And then deciding that you want to leave this global brand to create your own brand, really from the foundation of caring about people and wanting to, I guess at that point you then had your own vision. Is that true? Your own vision of creating?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Rachel. Yeah. It was actually after that I was headhunted it lasted about a year, which was also critical. Another role to have what's called a cold desk and to set up a whole division from scratch. That was a critical, as well as having the sales skills. That's not enough to be an entrepreneur. It's important. I think it's not enough. And so I had another year of what's cold desk and bringing lots of business in. And that at that point, having done really well for that, company that I was in for a year and being told at the age of 26 by my manager, you're bringing in a lot of revenue, go and get your driving license. You can have any car you want. And it just didn't excite me. And it should have excited me. Age 26, oh wow, I can get a top down. And it just, and that was a sign for me of maybe, I don't know what the wording I said to myself, but maybe I'm cut out to work alone.
Yeah, what do you think you were looking for? If you weren't looking for that quintessential recognition from your boss that says to you, "Here are the keys," right? I mean, that seems like a golden ticket, right? The keys to the car, right?
Yeah.
What do you think you were looking for?
I think, and even if I didn't articulate it to myself, I think freedom and independence. Of course, there's a financial aspect there, but it was very secondary or even less than that. Yeah, it was, I think I need to go it alone. And there was no rebellion. There was no, I can do this alone. It was just, I think, what's the worst that can happen? I think that was the reasoning I had with myself. I'm 26, I'm not married, I don't have a mortgage. It can all go wrong and I'll go and get a job. So that was the reasoning as well. You calculate your risks in life, I think. Take risks, but try and be smart about them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so you got started, and over a 17-year period, you grew this company into really being a major player in staffing and HR tech. What were some of the challenges that you experienced along the way, specifically as a woman building such a large organization?
Wow. Where to start from that 17-year? Yeah,
Yeah,
milestone.
I imagine that every single year had a whole list that we could delve into. So maybe just share a
Yeah,
few.
yeah. Yeah, some highlights. So once you start hiring staff, it comes with so much responsibility. I'm just not saying anything that people haven't thought of. You're responsible for staff and you've got to, and my role as CEO, one of my functions is bringing business in, so making sure the contracts are in order to ensure that cash flow's there and that we can pay the staff, the office staff. Um, and a bit of the other challenges. I think competition, which exists in every sphere, being given the chance to show that we are better than the competition. And when my competition was a lot more aggressive in the sales and the tactics used. And I'm just thinking, is that a woman thing? Maybe there's something there. But I want to say something maybe a little bit controversial about, so mildly controversial about the woman thing. When I started out, I think because I had dropped out of school at 15 and I quickly went and did my own thing, I didn't, I wasn't told and I didn't know that being a woman can be a disadvantage. So it sounds kind of funny because I now know that was very out there. I didn't have, not that bias, that belief. So it would have, maybe that was at play, but I didn't let anything really get in my way. I needed to give an excellent service to my clients, do what I say I'm going to do. It was that simple. And if you can't do it, let the person know. No magic formula, just build your credibility that way. So the controversial thing is because my business was a service business, not tech until we founded a tech business, service driven. I almost think I had an advantage over my male competitors of being a bit different, being quite interesting because I was a minority. And one of my skills and talents is reading the room, being very sensitive to people. It's for better or for worse, very sensitive to reading my client, reading my staff, understanding sometimes what's not said. And maybe that's a more female trait, characteristic trait, skill, talent. I don't know if there's any science behind that. Essentially, it was a service and the caring aspect, which was the secret sauce in my business. I think the success, everything was replicable and our competition replicated everything. We had a very, very state-of-the-art fancy training center with the best trainers, which was a real edge. And I always said to my team, that's replicable. I mean, we're ahead of the competition, but that can be repeated. Our tech is going to go out. We had first dibs because we built the tech ourselves. It's going to be out in the market. It's fancy. Our clients love it. It's replicable. The one thing our competition cannot copy is the DNA of the company, the caring for the staff. I don't think you can fake that. You can fake it for a while when people feel that we really cared for our staff, because these are people putting bread on the table, and some of them are staff out there in the field are living hand to mouth. And there's a way to give dignity to people that's non-negotiable with me. We paid them 40% over market rate. We've reduced our margins. I mean, it's just one example. We kept our margins fixed, and when I would negotiate a pay rise, it would go to the staff. And we made enough money that way. And that currently I didn't know was very unusual, and that's not how it was done. It's almost like we became advocates for our staff, because I don't know, they're human beings. And I say that as well. It's a very mistreated workforce. I think that's a universal thing. Cleaning staff, customer service staff, or the invisible workforce, the workforce you don't see, that you don't see because maybe they're doing the graveyard shift. That was our workforce. And it's, God only knows, it's hard enough doing that. So I was obsessive about that. And that's where I would intervene in the company. If there was any signs of us losing that magic, which cannot be copied because it comes from within, I think that was the secret to the success. And of course, you have to deliver and give good stuff and have the technology. But yeah, I don't even remember what you asked now. I went off on a tangent.
It was
It's what I'm
so good. There's so much about this that resonates for me, and I know is going to resonate for our listeners. First of all, I also grew up, my mother was actually an entrepreneur and started her own business when I was 3 months old. And so I also did not grow up with that inner voice that told me that women couldn't just be and do whatever it is that they wanted to do. And while you and I might have come from slightly different backgrounds, I think that message just deeply served me and who I have been able to become as a result, and continues to be the voice that is louder than anything else in my head, which is you can do it, right? The only thing that's stopping you is you yourself. The other thing that you talked about, this idea of the business DNA, so often we look at our competitors and we wonder, like, how are we different? And I struggle with this term, even competition, because I think in so many ways there is no such thing as direct competition, because I love your language. I haven't used that, although I might borrow it and adopt it and attribute it to you. But the reason that there is no direct competition is because there is no other you. And that whole human aspect of your business and the business DNA is only orchestrated, what's that scientific term of how it's designed? And that piece can never be replicated. And I think that it's such an important message for people to hear, because especially people who are newer in business, getting started in business, even kind of pushing some of their own glass ceilings and boundaries, need to be reminded that what's going on in the market can really serve as noise if you allow it to. There are ways to kind of look out and see what others are doing, but not to allow it to really derail us and hold us back from offering the thing that only we can offer in the way that we offer it. So yeah, it was, uh, those are very valuable insights for people to share, to get.
I
Um,
listen. Sorry, I went to.
Go ahead.
I listen to you as well. That the beauty of the uniqueness, and in everything I do, it's you. Whether it's you in business or you as a person, I'm helping you now. There is no replica of you, the human, in the world. And I think with what you said with your listeners as well. Sorry, just to finish on, and that's very special, and that's aspect of humans that I love. I think the key to that DNA, or whatever we're going to call it, there's not, I love what you said, there's no direct competition, is the self-awareness. And sometimes it takes another. We've all got our blind spots. And that's something I work with when I work with clients. Unless you have really good self-awareness, some people have that. There's probably undoubtedly missing aspects of the specialness of you that you're not so aware of. And whether it's a friend or a coach or I don't know, whatever, to mirror that to you. And that can be helpful. Yeah, that was all.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to having somebody who can be that reflection for you, were there other tips or practices that you found helped you to be able to work through your own moments of doubt or the challenges that you faced in that business?
Great question. Yeah. So I was saying about sometimes the merits of being a woman in business, in a service-led business. I think it was helpful. But if I'm to follow that thread, there's sometimes a disadvantage. I speak for myself, not for all women, of I am a nice person, and it's not an accident. I fell into a service-led business to serve. That suits my character. So therefore, when you need to fire people or deal with very difficult clients for being unreasonable and you doubt yourself, it can be unpleasant, emotionally draining. Some people love doing that and they get energized from it. But, I'll speak for myself, not me. What would really help me in dealing with those situations, whether it's needing to fire someone, is to remember it's that there's a whole business here. I had an image of a triangle in my opposite my desk. I have clients to consider. We serve the clients, they pay the bills. We have the office staff and the field staff. If I don't deal with it, for example, if I don't deal with this and I don't fire you, there's a lot of people suffering for not dealing with that and just being avoidant. So to remember that there's for want of a better term, a greater good here. And it helped me maybe ethically and emotionally deal with that situation, have that difficult conversation. And no, it doesn't have to be fun. I don't like it, but it needs to be done because avoiding it, there's a cost to that. I don't know if that was a doubt. And around
I think it's a good point,
Yeah.
just to think about what the cost is to not moving through whatever the moment is, right? Whether it is doubt, whether it's some other challenge, but there is always another side to it. One of the things that I often say is whatever we say yes to, we're saying no to something else.
Mhm.
And so if we say yes to the doubt, if we say yes to whatever it is that's coming up, or if we give it permission, even without actually intentionally giving it permission, but just by default, then we're saying no to what other opportunities lie on the other side. So I think that can really apply in a lot of different ways.
Nice. I also think, I don't know if it's controversial, but I think some doubt's a healthy thing. I know there's the whole thing of the imposter syndrome and taken too far, unhealthy, negative. But I think a bit of doubt, skepticism is a good thing because it makes you question yourself and do your checks and keep you balanced. I think some people could do with a bit more doubt. They don't suffer from that problem. And I always say also in life,
Humility, right?
yeah, a bit of, could do with some humility. I think be with anything, be skeptical, question, ask the questions. Just don't be cynical. Don't believe in nothing. So it's that golden mean, that in between. And the final thing on doubt would be I would always need to know that I've given it everything. If there's a contract we're going, for example, that really suits our company, would create loads of jobs and no shortcuts. And then it did happen sometimes, no shortcuts, give it your all, bring the right team in, do what it takes. And if we don't get it, we did our best. And it happened, and that's disappointing. But there's almost nothing worse than the regret where you're faced with yourself. You didn't do like anything in life, I think, where you didn't do what's necessary. I think if we did, under my leadership, we did everything necessary. We lost some. Don't let that go inside and internalize that and just get better. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but that was another methodology.
Very nice. I want to shift our conversation and talk about the multiple roles that you play and that so many of us as women play. The ones for you are mother, investor, mentor, entrepreneur, like the friend, family member. The list could go on, but we all have our own list of titles. How do you find balance? And what advice do you have for other business owners who are trying to juggle everything and all the multiple responsibilities and hats that they wear?
And yes, I'm hearing a lot out there. You can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. I don't know. I really don't know what my opinion is on that. I think that's very much out there. I call it the elusive balance because we're pursuing it. We don't. The reason this question exists, I think, is it's not here the balance. There's times that it's a little bit elusive, and I think we're pursuing it. It's a noble pursuit, I think. So there was a time, so when I was running my business, running my business for 17 years, it almost took a priority. There's a price for that on the home. I have 4 kids, and we were somewhere, and my husband was also CEO and my business partner. We were somewhere in the middle, being busy. I've got some friends and their parents were totally absent. They're in boarding school. It wasn't that. but there were late nights in the office. There's a time for everything. Right now, my priority with all the titles you've read is being a mother, the 4 kids. They're still young. You don't get that time back. That's what all the wise elders say. And yeah, that was really 6 years ago that everything must revolve for me. And this is personal to me. Everything revolves around the house. So if I'm making a new commitment, I have to check that it doesn't take me away from that role. So that's my balance. And I do other things. And for instance, after this tonight, I do have a late night meeting. I'll be there really late in Tel Aviv. I make sure my husband's home. He'll be with the kids. And that's okay. And that's what I want. I want to be doing that once a week, whatever. I don't want to be here all the time. So I think it's looking at what's important to you right now. And early stages of a business, you will be stretched. And then you have to question, I guess, and you will be stretched. Do you want it enough? Is this right for you? Manage the guilt. If you're a mum, not everyone watching this is necessarily a mother. It could be balanced it with looking after elderly parents if the kids have flown their nest, or there is no kids. It's beyond that. I'm just speaking of my experience. Be clear on your priorities and not to feel guilty. If you want to be busy and you want to pursue your career over and above the kids, because that's burning inside you, you have to be okay with that, and you be sure of that, and then go for it. And that's another person's balance. And learning to say no, turn down projects, say no. That can help your balance. Don't be so accommodating if you're over accommodating, an accommodating person, and learning to be efficient. Thank you with a busy home. Yeah.
Really good suggestions. Great. Thank you. As we're wrapping up, I would love for you just to share a little bit more about this new business that you're building. And I know you're really stepping in to support other founders. Tell us how you're doing that, how you're supporting people, what this incubator is or the accelerator that we talked about. Tell us all the things about where you are today professionally.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah. So I'm getting a bit busy. I've noticed, speaking of balance, it's funny. Oh, I have to get more efficient. I'm getting busy. For the last year, so there's a well-known organization called the Founder Institute. They say they are the largest pre-seed accelerator, pre-seed early stage founders, idea stage, proof of concept stage. Often that's a neglected cohort. Maybe since the tech bubble, a little bit burst, COVID, and now the war in Israel, with investors looking to hedge their bets in kind of the more stable, more established startups. So a lot of startups can die at the idea stage because they haven't got access to the VCs. So that's just a bit of background. And it's my role at the Founders Institute at the Tel Aviv cohort is looking after the founders. My role at the Founder Institute is to look after the founders. We have about 13 paid and subscribed, ready for the accelerator. We're aiming for 20. And I love it because the product's essential, very interesting, but I love founders. What does that mean? I love founders. Just there's innovation there. There's entrepreneurship. There's a bit of courage. All these wonderful facets and hunger, and they need support. They need some help. They need some reassurance of someone who's made it out the other end. Practical advice as well. Introductions. I think one of the things I enjoy as well is connecting some of them to my network and then connecting them to someone in my network. And that, I love that, especially when something good comes of it. It's really, really my pleasure. So that's on the day-to-day. And there's a slightly higher goal of that. And it's only part-time I'm doing that. I'm doing other things as well, is to help the ecosystem in Israel. We need to be helping at all ends, because at the early stage, because that's the pipeline, right? What's going to come through the pipeline into our economy here and into the globe, because startups tend to bounce from Israel, the small market. Not all of them, but they bounce from Israel to Europe or to the US or to both. And to make that impact and help make that impact in the world, help them. So that's fun. And so the product's always interesting, and that's the innovation. But it keeps me with the human. That's my thing. I want to know about your product. And if it's not of any use, then nothing's going to happen. But I lean more towards the founder themselves, the human, whether it's a bit of advisory or coaching or encouragement. That's without having to run a large business. I'm really enjoying that. And I think, because it's still early stages, I think I can help. It's a bit experimental since the exit. I'm being a bit experimental there. Yeah.
It's a nice, fun, fluid place to be. is trying new things and seeing what, not just what sticks, but also what speaks to you.
Yeah, that's right. That's where
Yeah,
I'm at.
where your heart is, what's going to motivate you professionally going forward, and so forth. Crescendo is all about finding your voice as a woman in business. And I want to ask you one last question, which is something I ask all of my guests. And that is, what is one tip you have for other women building businesses for the first time and striving to honor their authentic voice?
Just one. Yeah. Okay. Um, the pausing here is me trying to make it meaningful with one piece of advice around their authentic voice. I think,
You can't narrow it down. 3 is
okay,
fine, whatever.
I think the believe in yourself, yes, believe in yourself. And as you're believing in yourself, you may get, not you will get, you may get the rejection. And that's okay. Whether you go back and optimize, what I want to say is listen to the criticism. It's important to know where the criticism is coming from. It could be from envy. It could be from a good place. Be wise about who's given the advice and why they're giving that advice. Be as wise as you can. And whether it's criticism or praise, listen to that. You don't necessarily need to ignore it because it could be extremely useful. And find there's junctures in a business. There's the junctures to stop, question, do I want this? Is it working? Am I enjoying this? Yes, no. And it's a whole way. And it's hard in the beginning. There might not be balance. It's hard. Typically, that's normal. It was very hard for me. I took another job but I wanted it enough. So that hardship and the no's and the money not coming through and the contract falling through and all that stuff that happens, it was okay because I wanted it enough. If I didn't, I probably would have stopped. But I was at a point where nothing was going to get in my way. A window shut, a door would open. That's what it took for me to pursue and persevere.
Yeah, it's really good. Do you want it enough? Really
Yeah.
nice. Thank you, Ruth, so much for sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us today. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If this episode struck a chord or generated some sort of an insight for you, take a moment to comment or share this with a friend. And of course, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And before we go, I'm thrilled to invite you to join the waitlist for your revenue roadmap, which is my most coveted workshop of the year for ambitious business builders ready to take strategic, successful, and actionable action in 2025. It's a transformative 2-day experience that will equip you with the strategies, the tools, and steps to grow your business your way. So if you're ready to get your revenue roadmap and walk away with a step-by-step planner, join the waitlist today. The link is in the show notes here, and we'll let you know as soon as the doors open with, of course, some of those early enrollment bonuses. So go ahead and click the link in the show notes. And until next time, keep finding and sharing your voice.